Let's say a prayer. So, placing my hands on my heart, taking that deep cleansing breath of love and gratitude, just resting in this heart space, in this place where peace always abides. Grateful for our willingness to come together to be the two or more who are gathered in the name and the nature of love. Grateful for our willingness to know the higher truth is that all there is love, unconditional love. Grateful for our willingness to read and discuss our understanding so that we may best live the teachings of Jesus through A Course in Miracles. Grateful for our willingness to allow whatever arises at any given moment, at any time, to arise and move through us and out of us. We're grateful for our willingness to know our true identity is innocent, wholly deserving of the all good of God. We're grateful for our mighty companions, our earthly and heavenly helpers. We ask that they join us now, surrounding and supporting each person here, all who may listen later. We're grateful for our willingness to have fully open hearts and fully open minds, to allow us to receive and expand into more and more love. And we're grateful to share all that we receive through this prayer, through this conversation, and through our knowing of our divinity and our worthiness with Mother Earth and all her beings, because we are one. In grace and gratitude, we let it be, and so it is. Amen. So we are still in chapter 4, the ego's struggle to perceive itself. And we're covering today's section 4, the ego's need to confirm itself. And I think I'll start us with, excuse me, the last sentence in the first paragraph and paragraph 2. And then the little note that goes below that, which is number 40. Giving to get is an inescapable law of the ego, which, preoccupied with the scarcity principle, gave rise to it. Sorry. This is the meaning of Freud's pleasure principle. Freud was the most accurate ego psychologist we ever had. Although he would not have preferred this description himself, his ego was very weak and deprived concept, which could function only as a thing in need. The reality principle of the ego is not real at all. The ego is forced to perceive the reality of others because it cannot establish the reality of itself. In fact, its whole perception of other egos as real is only an attempt to convince itself that it is real. And then the notes at the bottom, number 40. In Freudian psychology, the ego operates by the reality principle. It acknowledges and bows to the, or bows. So bows, I think it's bows to the requirements of external reality. Thus, although the id craves immediate gratification, which is the pleasure principle, the ego, being realistic, learns to delay that gratification in service of social appropriateness, reality principle. The two principles, therefore, are in constant conflict. In the above passage, however, the reality principle and the pleasure principle work hand in hand in that both seek in very different ways to overcome the ego's sense of not being real, the scarcity principle. The ego tries to confirm its own reality through filling its bodily needs, pleasure principle, and through acknowledging the reality of other egos, reality principle. Thus, however different the two principles are on the surface, the purpose of both is to support the ego. Jesus is thus implying that in this system, the word ego encompasses both the Freudian ego, reality principle, and the Freudian id, pleasure principle. We can, the term ego here, moving beyond the Freudian meaning towards its larger course meaning. I know that's a lot to take in, but I know, right? That's a lot to take in. But it's basically saying that the ego, its whole motivation is to try and convince itself that it exists and that it's real and that it's important, and you know, and that it's separate from God. So that's what I felt like that's what it was saying. And um when I think about that in relation to any time that I'm feeling upset, it's absolutely because the ego is feeling like it's not what it takes to try and confirm its existence. So anyways, that's what I got from reading that. Anybody else? Go ahead, Kathleen. And then Carla.
Oh, well, I just keep reading. Self-esteem, like number 3 in ego terms, means nothing more than the ego has deluded itself into accepting its reality, and it's therefore temporarily less predatory. We talk about self-esteem a lot, but it's always vulnerable to stress, um, in which the delusion of the ego's reality is threatened. Lives by comparisons. That was a useful statement to me. So every time I'm judging, making comparisons, I'm in ego. And then number 9, the term salvation does not apply to the soul, which is in no danger and does not need to be salvaged. Salvation is nothing more than right-mindedness, which is not the one-mindedness of the spirit, but which must be accomplished before one-mindedness can be restored. So we have to be right-minded. Wait a minute, there's 2 different things there. Right-mindedness and one-mindedness.
Mm-hmm.
Salvation is nothing more than right-mindedness, which is not the one-mindedness of the spirit, but which must be accomplished before one-mindedness can be restored. So I have to just keep my mind. The mind then only has one direction in which it can move, which is love. So anyway, it's just like, okay, this is really interesting, and it sure makes a lot of sense. And then how are we, can we just move past it, please? Just go right to loving.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. I feel like that's why Jennifer says that, in her earlier, it's why from less and then from ego-mindedness to right-mindedness. And then
Yes,
when
very
you're
frustrating.
more firmly in right-mindedness and dipping your toe into one-mindedness, um, I feel like same thing happen.
Constantly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mary Lee. Oh, and then Carla actually had her right after Kathleen. Carla, did you wish
My, if that is, we know the truth. So we're constantly doing things in the world, going to the bathroom, sleep. Thing is to be of the world. You know, what you can do, address whatever is happening, to hold also that witches are burned up, mother made, but is gone now, that you won't have that. There's loss, really. That I'm so, I don't see that way. I I mean, she holds on to a lot of anguish to show up of stuff. So she doesn't. It's for half, just prayer. I And it's really challenging because the voice in your head separate. Oops. You're not doing stuff right. This is that. But to remember that whatever is appearing, it's being utilized somehow. It's being woven. I call God the master weaver, because everything has been chosen, but in the moment we get to choose. We don't, it's not decided for us. We have free will to choose the next step, whatever happens in our, so God will weave all those choices, unloving or loving, whatever it is, into good. Now it says the courses, I don't remember at the early part, but it's that you have to, it's a predetermined course, you have to take it. But it's not actually the Course in Miracles, it's the course of life. And it's we're having all these things happen to us too. It seems like it's bad and it's wrong, and people are gonna suffer, and businesses are gonna be affected or whatever. And all it is one thing. One thing. There's only one thing that ever happens. We're given an opportunity to choose. What do we choose? And I speak on it a lot. And do I do it every second? No. But I do my best. And speaking of it, is helping me. You all are helping me remind myself that my only choice to choose, when I get the opportunity to choose, is to choose love and to choose kindness, or whatever you want to call it. It has many appearances: compassion, patience, forgiveness. It's all love. There's only one thing: love. It's all any of them ever were and ever will be. And so that's what I'm interested in practicing, choosing in this life. Thank you.
Carla. Always practicing. Mary Lee.
I've missed the last couple weeks, so I will need to read those chapters about ego, and maybe you all are ahead of me as far as if I say anything that sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about, which could very well be. Again, on the section 3, because self-esteem in ego terms means nothing more than that the ego has deluded itself into accepting its reality and is therefore temporarily less predatory. So I'm thinking of that, and then on the heels of that, and I'm probably repeating what Kathleen had just also talked about, but it has to do with this the coming election, how I have felt vulnerable to stress. This self-esteem is always vulnerable to stress, a term which really means that a condition has arisen in which the delusion of the ego's reality is threatened. And so when I think about why am I so stressful about the outcome of the presidential election and those who will follow many of the concepts or activities of the president, meaning it's not just the president, it's all the throne around the president. And I realize there is probably this delusion in my ego that my reality is thus threatened, and so then it goes behind that thought. Well, what is my reality that is threatened by that? And I would say feeling a possible loss of feeling that right triumphs. Okay, and then you were just talking about right-mindedness. And that is what I seek. And to be not judgmental. So my words don't mean to be, if they're taken that way, judgmental toward one and not another. I think I am doing quite a bit of judgment in that scenario. You might say, based on what? Testimony of others, of what they've been through. If when they have had dictators say, no, you're the wrong religion, or you're this and you're that, you're Jewish, or you're homosexual, or you're this, and so thus march off to the camps. It's kind of hard to think of those things and not be threatened. I like the things that are emphasized here about striving not to judge. It's like my self-esteem is helped, I think, by groups such as this, because I feel an overall striving for goodness. If I thought you were all gathered here to make fun of people or things that don't help me in this world, I wouldn't come. There's a question that goes along with that, and that is, in what you've studied so far on the couple weeks of ego that I missed, is the course suggesting that we can ever get rid of it? Because I can't. We're supposed to get rid of this that we've had since birth. Now I'm going to be 75 in a couple weeks. I'm supposed to get rid of this as if it was a bad thing, because I guess I don't think it's a bad thing. It's what I was born with. And yes, when it says here about in relation to others, it's true. I think that's why I don't feel truly alone, as long as I have friends that I'm calling, and even family member. In my case, they're quite different in all their beliefs than I, but they're still, it's who I was born with. So it's not saying that ego is bad, is it?
I think it is. What do you mean, Linda?
I don't know. I feel like, okay, it's saying that for my understanding of the course is that it's telling us that what we're doing here on this seeming earth plane, which is all an illusion, that when we are acting from the ego, which my understanding is really the ego was created from each experience that we've had since we came out of our mother's wombs and took a breath. Like every experience we had, the ego made meaning of it, and that is how it interprets what's happening in the world around it. So anything that questions the ego's identity can feel to the ego like a threat. And so that, to me, is why there are times when the ego feels like it wants to kill you and will act as though it's trying to kill you because it perceives that you are trying to kill it. So what I have come to understand around the ego is, if I treat it as though it is a child or an animal that is, like just learning how to be potty trained or something like that, and know that, it's going to have accidents because it's just starting its practice of being potty trained, but treat it like it's that sweet child or animal that we love. So we may explain to it that its perception is, or its action is, a little misguided, but we're not going to hate it because it peed on the floor by accident. We're going to try and guide it back into right-mindedness. So I don't feel like the ego is a bad thing. The ego is just the personality's misunderstanding or misinterpretation of what either has happened around it or what is happening around it. But like the Course says at the very beginning, nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. And herein lies the peace of God. So when we remember that, even when the ego is acting out, if we, as our more mature spiritual self beings, can remember that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists, like everything else is an illusion, then we can stay in a peaceful place no matter what is happening around us, including atrocities or natural disasters like Kathleen has lived through. There's just, yes, we act on what is happening around us based on our, what we think is a right action that would be helpful. But, like Carla was saying, if your house is on fire, you're not going to just stay there and say nothing real exists. You're going to call the fire department and you're going to get out of the house, or vice versa. So I don't know if that explains it at all, but that's my interpretation of the ego, is not something that is trying to kill us. Although I do feel that there are times that it is trying to kill us, but it's only trying to kill us because it feels threatened, like an animal that has been injured and cornered. I don't know if that answers any of your questions. Really.
I think that the ego is running my life until it's not. The moment that I'm kind or the moment that I'm loving, now I'm
Yes.
not in the ego. And that paragraph 6, the ego's ceaseless attempt to gain the spirit's acknowledgement and thus really establish its own existence are utterly useless. Spirit in its knowledge is unaware of the ego. So when we are in our spirit state, we're not even aware of that there's this stupid, silly ego running around trying to be real by creating a body. Ego created our body, and in the dream. And then to fight to defend the body, and all the time we spend thinking about our body, that's all ego. But as soon as we slide into some peace and joy and happiness, then we are not in the ego anymore. We're in spirit. Spirit is unaware of the ego. While the ego is equally unaware of the spirit, it does perceive itself as rejected by something which is greater than itself. This is why self-esteem in ego terms must be a delusion. We're not rejected by something higher than ourselves. We are part of God and inside of God, and we are creating. The next section talks about how we are still creating.
Mhm.
And those creations are as safe as we are. We're completely safe because we are part of God and God created us and we're not a body. So to me, the ego is insane. So whenever I'm thinking insane thoughts, like I have to be afraid because there's an election coming up, that's an insane thought. We don't have to be afraid. I mean, if they put me in a camp, I'll do the best I can in the camp. If I starve to death, I'll do the best I can starving to death. You know, there's just like, I don't know. The ego paints this horrible picture. It's not that bad. We can get through anything. You know, it's just, we just have to help each other. That's like hurricanes. Watch people help each other is absolutely amazing. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, there's beauty in the worst, ugliest places. If you're looking for it, you can find it. Does that help at all, Mary Lee?
Oh, I'm listening.
Okay. Go ahead, Grace.
Hi,
Thanks,
thanks.
Kathleen.
This is so interesting. I jump around on this one all the time. In fact, I think differently today than I did yesterday. I think the ego would like us to die before we wake up to who we are. I don't think the ego's particularly my friend. I think actually it's quite vicious. And the more I see some of the thoughts that go through my head, the more I realize, yeah, it's not the nicest person in the world. You know, sometimes I feel totally murderous about somebody. And, you know, I go, well, look at that. How nice is that? So, yeah, I do think the ego's not my friend. And I think the game is keep me so busy with these problems that I have, whatever they are. My daughter's out of work, my grandson's sick, I'm having problems with my renter. It doesn't matter. It's always there. There's always one there. And as long as there's all these things keeping me busy, then it stops me spending time in the quiet with spirit, which is who I really am. So I try and make time every day just to be very quiet now and listen, see what God wants to say to me. And I might have to do this for a long time before I get anywhere, but what it does is it shows me, wow, you are always busy with something. You're always preoccupied. I even watched something on Trump this morning, and then I thought, oh, please. You know, I mean, it's the same old, but why am I so attracted to it? So I noticed, yeah, I'm attracted to that conflict between the Trumpists and the non-Trumpists, the haves and the have-nots. And if I can stand back and look at it, it's about a lot of people feeling very disenfranchised that have brought Trump to the surface. Why are these people feeling disenfranchised? Well, because the system isn't working for them. You know, they don't have the money. Some are homeless. There's a lot of people that just don't have. Some people just don't have an education. And so they're looking at the people who have smarts, you know. There's all these huge differences. So Trump really, it's more than just, you know, I think he's an idiot. It's more, he's coming to the surface to represent a whole population in this country who are completely in their ego and but believing all these things about themselves and about the others. So really it's kind of a wake-up call to me to look at that and not jump on, oh, he's an idiot, which I'm ready to do any single second. I was trying to find this video this morning where apparently he stopped speaking. I thought, I have got to see that one. You know, apparently he blanked out and stopped speaking. And so I was attracted to that headline. I thought, I've got to see this. And I had to watch 10 minutes of it before they didn't even show it. But anyway, I noticed then my attraction to conflict, to feeling separate from Trump and separate from the crowd of people that he represents. So, yeah, I'm very wary of the ego. I do not think it's my friend. But I also need to just watch it that I don't get sucked into that one as well to make me feel separate from something or somebody. But anyway, it's not, it's a lot, and I think we can jump around on it while we're learning this stuff. And I think what is important to get quiet whenever we can, and then we'll hear our real selves, the spirit that we are, hopefully.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, the Course says there is only love or lack of love, basically. So
Yeah.
for me, Trump and the folks that are following him represent that sense of lack of love.
Yeah.
And so if I'm responding to that with hatred or disdain or disgust or whatever, what is that saying about me? You know, why am I responding to this cry for love in these unloving ways? Yeah, it's just, it's in fear, and I don't want to treat anyone or anything that's in fear with cruelty, even if it's cruel to me. Turn the other cheek, right? Go ahead, Carla.
I get it. It's like you're joining them. You think you're like not liking them, and you think you're judging them, but that's what they're doing. And so you join them in judging. And it's like, oh my gosh. And so what I was going to say is there was everything that happens in life, I can learn from if I choose to, right? If I don't choose to judge or blame them for whatever's happening to take responsibility. But when I was doing this one thing, it helped me differentiate between, say, love and fear, some just words, right? Descriptions that I called ego the false self. It's not the true self. The true self is love. It's fear. Anything else but love, it's the false self. And so the challenge is to recognize that, not judge it. Definitely, if you judge it, you're joining it. It's judging, right? You're joining the judgment. So to see it, oh, that's what's happening. But you see it because the true self never, spirit, whatever you call it, love, never judges. It just sees it. Oh, it can give it, if it helps you in your mind, give it meaning, this sort of meaning, that sort of meaning. But there goes, oh man, it doesn't, that feeling, and that's so easy to believe. It's not our feeling. Whose feeling is it? I mean, the ego, the false self, is the body, right? So if we're feeling angst or fear or blame or judgment or whatever you call it, because only love is real. It's just to remember stuff, you have to label it in your mind. And after a while, we get lost in all the, it's like how the libraries are, how compartmentalize it. And so all I need is one compartment, love. And if we're thinking and deciding, that's the false self deciding. That's what it does. It decides to ask peace. And if you feel peaceful, then you let go of that. The higher self will show you, is Carla real? Yeah, in a way. I'm informed here. I'm experiencing, but it's the true self of Carla. It's real. And who am I? I am the vessel through which I can express the true self, God, because we're one. Always have been, always will be.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. Paula, I just wanted to see if there was anything you wanted to add to the conversation, because you've been very quiet.
I've been contemplating, and I just burnt my corn muffins for supper. I smelt them. I thought, wow, what does smell so good?
Oh, oh,
Oh,
Ah, shit. Um, I don't, I'm learning. I'm willing, I'm learning, and I have difficulty when things are smacking me right in the face of not believing that it's a dream and that this isn't real and all that shit, because it's just like Kathleen, you're right in the middle of this damn hurricane and it's falling all around you, and you're going to say, oh, that's a dream. I think I'll just stand here because God's going to protect me. You know what I'm saying? So that's the ego right there, making this idea. But yesterday was the court date for my son-in-law was killed in a boating accident. The guy was drunk and ran into his boat at 45 miles an hour. And yesterday they had the first court date, and of course they pleaded not guilty. And they all this time have lied and said that his daughter was driving the boat so he wouldn't get in trouble. And that is the ego really being pissed off at him. But then I go back to, I'm praying for them. And I truly mean that I'm praying for them. And I am willing to see the Christ in them. And then yesterday, all the whole story came back. But it's nothing like when my son was murdered. Nothing. Because I'm looking at spirit now instead of all blame and all ego. But am I there that I said it didn't happen? I'm not there yet, but I'm so willing to look at this differently, but it's not happening. And I'm willing to be compassionate to my daughter whose husband is gone, my grandson whose dad's gone. It's just so confusing to me. And this ego thing, it's awesome that I recognize it now. Instead of complete blame and stuck in it, because when I'm blaming in the ego, I'm stuck. And I know the difference today. I'm not stuck today like I was yesterday. And I used to live in stuck. My whole life was stuck. So yeah, sometimes I do feel alone. The ego likes to make me feel alone, especially when I started studying the Course in Miracles and in these groups. I don't know what the hell anybody was talking about. I don't know all these people. I don't even know what kumbaya and whatever that yoga thing. I don't know what the hell they're talking about, and I felt so alone and so separate. But that was the ego. But somewhere in my heart it connected. I would like to know God. I would like to know the peace of God. I would like to feel the connection to God, and this helps me feel it.
yeah.
All the time? No. But moment by moment, yeah, I can. And you know what? I went to vote. I already voted. And I was there, and it was 2 hours long. And in Indiana, there's never been a Democrat ever won for president. But I still vote. I used to think, why bother? Because I do it for me. And I just read a book the whole time I was in line, and I did judge a little bit, thinking, oh, these damn people are probably all Republicans. I did think that. But then I went back to my book, because actually, what the hell what difference does it make? What can we really do about it? We're really powerless. We have no control over this. And we spend all this time in agony about what if. And really, what can we really do about it? So, yeah. That's
Yeah,
why I've
we
been
can-
quiet, because yeah.
Yeah, we can practice love and compassion like you are doing.
Yeah,
You're doing when you
trying,
voted, and like
willing.
yes,
I am so willing.
yeah,
But you
I don't
still
want to see them
voted. You
punished. I
still
really
voted.
don't.
You still voted. You are powerful. You can vote.
I did. I voted, and no matter what, because I'm going to do my part and let it go.
yeah.
Put one foot in front of the other and let it go.
Yes.
And that's a practice that I try to keep. Sometimes I do it better than others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Thank you, Paula. Go ahead, Mary Lee.
Well, I've had so many thoughts that Paula just expressed. And I guess the very act, I've got a ballot here. I have an absentee ballot with me that I was making out last night. And I think it's the right thing to do versus not, which brings me to the concepts, trying to understand the concept even of ego. It seems to me that as a human being with this certain amount of time in this body, and 75 years of it has passed. And I'm not to the point of saying this world isn't real and so forth. I'm not there. But I do feel like as long I want to be right-minded, but the ego is probably always going to be with me. I probably am not going to be perfect and holy and suddenly not have that contention. It almost seems to me that our lives, our brief lives on earth, that's part of the program. That's part of the gift. I don't think I'm going to be in this body in another 25, 50 years. I don't. This is a brief period. And yes, I would much rather than how Paula expressed it. Sometimes you just start like, my gosh, there seems so much against us being right-minded, or as Carla was saying, being loving. There's so much every day that goes against that, seemingly. So reading the Course of Miracles and talking about it with you all who are here this morning, that's very real to me. It's not like I think I'm making you all up. So that I'm probably not at that point after 75 years. Well, let's see what the next 5 brings. Maybe another 5, 10 years of studying the course. Maybe I would, I think I get it. I'm kind of making this up or something. I don't know. But right now, I think that term of right-mindedness, Paula voted because it is a right-minded thing in our here and now to do, is to strive to choose good over not good, or kindness toward others. Choose that rather than making fun of others. So just adding to thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Lee. Go ahead, Kathleen.
You might read The Way of Mastery because it was written 10 years after the Course in Miracles by Jesus, and it's lighter. It's not so much all about the ego. It's about loving ourselves and accepting how powerful we are. And if we goof up, we just say, oh, well, would you look at that? I goofed up again, or I thought with the ego again. Gosh, we don't condemn ourselves. And there's exercises in there that are really good. And anyway, so I would just recommend read The Way of Mastery. It's easier than The Course in Miracles. And it's a little more funny, a little lighter, more humorous.
I see. And is that the name of the book, The Way of Mastery, and one can
Yes.
get through ACIM?
No, you just get it on Amazon.
Yeah,
It's just
I actually have a group if you're ever interested. So it can change. Right now we do it on Wednesday.
Wednesday time.
10, I'm at Pacific, so
Oh.
it's like 10:30 in the morning.
7:30, 12:30, 1:30 Eastern. Yeah, Way of Mastery group.
We just finished up the book so we can start again.
I'm reading it with Ted Schwartz too, but we haven't met in a few
Cool.
weeks. We're about halfway through. And we just read it out loud to each other and talk about it, which I kind of like, instead of reading it ahead of time. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, the lessons right now are so beautiful. Like the Holy Spirit speaks through me today. That
Yeah,
listening, letting the Holy Spirit speak and pausing. Like that's why I posted the thing with Nuke Sanchez, because they
I
really,
can't wait to watch it.
yeah, she talked about what that means to let the Holy Spirit speak through you. It just means pausing before you talk and just kind of listening to make sure you're not going to say anything mean or something, I guess. But I think we are so much more powerful than we let ourselves act and do and think. And, we can, Jesus rose people from the dead, and so can we. I mean, there's these amazing things we can do here that I think the more we believe it, that we are miracle minded, we can actually see and do and start
Absolutely.
seeing these little miracles around us. Yeah. But anyway, as for the election, I think like mass consciousness is either going to decide we're still being mean to each other, so we're getting Trump, because we got to look at it even more. Look how mean he is. Look how mean he is. Look how mean all of his followers are. Okay, we're not getting it that we're mean, so we got to have more Trump. Or we'll be think, okay, we're kind enough now. We can have Kamala. We're kind. Our spirit is more enlightened now. We don't need more Trump. We can have Kamala. So I don't know what'll happen, but I think it's the mass consciousness is going to decide, or God, or whatever. What do we need to look at? Trump making everyone even meaner. No, we're sick of that. I'm so sick of that ego shit. No, let's not do that anymore. Let's try a woman. So be interesting to see what happens, see what we create.
Yeah.
I read an article by Dan Rather. I love that guy. He said, I suggest that you turn off the TV. Do not look at the polls. Don't look, don't read, don't do anything. Just relax. Find a good book and do your voting and just relax, and then look, and don't even look at it the next day. Just take it, because people are so wound up with this. I'm not, since I voted, whatever. I'm not looking at nothing.
Me either. I voted. I'm not looking at it till the day it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like the whole point is to know that we're not separate. So I am Kamala Harris and I am Donald Trump. And whatever I choose in the moment, love or fear, love or a cry for love, that's my lesson. That's my lesson in this election. And I did want to share like the last paragraph 8. It's not the last one, but paragraph 8 and the thing below it. I know we're going to be running a little bit late, but this beginning is always associated with physical birth because nobody maintains that the ego existed before that point in time. The religiously ego-oriented tend to believe that the soul existed before and continue to exist afterwards, after a temporary lapse in ego. Some actually believe that the soul will be punished for this lapse, even though in reality it could not possibly know anything about it. This is not to say that the ego did not exist before birth. This is just talking about what believers in myths and or religion tend to think. The Course teaches that the ego began with the separation rather than with the physical birth. The atonement and the separation began at the same time. When you made the ego, for example, when the separation began, God placed in you the call of joy. The atonement also began. And one of the things that came to me when I read that paragraph and that and the note below it was the memory of when I had tubal pregnancy. And here's the like a mind-blowing thing that happened when I was thinking about it this time, because I have thought about that incident in my life for decades. My husband and I had been going through infertility treatments for 2 years, and I was not getting pregnant. And then I started to have morning sickness symptoms. And so I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And so I called the doctor and I made an appointment, and I don't know, it was a week, 2 weeks, whatever, before the appointment was to happen. And then of course went to the doctor and found out that it was a tubal pregnancy. It had to be terminated. And the grief that came from that was so intense. The depression that lasted after that was probably at least 5 years, deep depression. And coming back to my spiritual studies and my spiritual practices allowed me to connect that moment with when I was an infant and I stopped breathing and my grandmother had to do CPR to bring me back because my heart stopped and I had stopped breathing. And like knowing that the reason why I came back, instead of staying, in one with God moment, was because I didn't want my mother and my grandmother to feel that sense of grief that I was feeling when I lost that baby that I only knew I had for a couple of weeks. And also that little being only needed to feel the intense love that I had for it for the time that I thought I was pregnant. And here's the mind blower that I came up with today when I read that. That little being is me. If I can love myself that deeply, just imagine what could happen in this world. If I can forgive myself for any mistake I ever make and just look at it as though, I spilled milk, so what? Who cares? If I can look at any flaw that I see on this body or in this life, in my house, in my relationships, as, just spilled milk, like it's no big deal, and still love myself that intensely, just imagine what that intensity of love could do for Donald Trump and his followers. So my I don't know if I would say it's a suggestion, but like play with it. Love him as deeply as you love the things and the people and the animals that you love the most. Send that love to him. Send that love to him and all of the people who are following him and voting for him, who he's surrounding himself with. Love the crap out of them. Love the crap out of them and see what happens. I often have said to my my friend Christine, who's my somatic movement teacher, if I was a Care Bear, I would be the I fucking love you Care Bear because it's like I just want you to get that sense of how loved you are by everyone and everything. So, anyways, I don't know if anybody has anything that they would like to say about that or
I
whatever.
fucking love you, Linda, but I have to go. I have an appointment.
I fucking love you, Paula. I love you guys. I really do.
I love you too. That was
I do
great.
too. I really do.
Great,
So,
Linda.
have a good week, everybody.
Okay.
Only 2
Love
more
you.
weeks until this election is over. We can do this.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. He can ride up on us.
Yep. Love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.